The massive crystal dome above the Galactic Council chamber glowed with a cold blue light as hundreds of alien delegates took their seats. The air buzzed with tension and the constant hum of universal translators converting dozens of different languages into comprehensible speech. Ambassador Velkarn stood at the central podium, his towering 8-foot frame commanding attention. His 4 muscular arms spread wide as he addressed the crowd, each gesture precise and theatrical. The Zephyrian's scaled skin reflected the chamber's light, making him appear even more imposing than usual. "Look around you," Velkarn's voice boomed through the chamber. 43 species have gathered here today. Representatives from every corner of our galaxy. Yet one chair sits empty. All eyes turned to the simple seat marked with Earth's blue and green symbol. The chair had been vacant for 3 days now, ever since the human ambassador had stormed out during the preliminary vote. "The humans refuse to answer our calls," Velkarn continued, his voice growing sharper. "They ignore our messages. They mock our authority by their very absence. This arrogance cannot stand." Elder Thrixtau rose from her crystal throne, her ancient form shimmering like living glass. When she spoke, her voice rang like wind chimes in a storm. "I have lived for 15 centuries, she said slowly. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen species grow from primitive hunters to masters of space travel. But never have I seen such dangerous growth as humanity displays." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Altarian delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. The Veltaran representative coiled her serpentine body tighter around her perch. Even the usually calm Andromedans shifted uncomfortably in their hovering chairs. 12 systems, Elder Thrixtau continued. That is all humanity controls. 12 small systems in the outer rim. Yet in 30 years, they have built a military force that rivals species controlling hundreds of worlds. Their ships appear faster than our intelligence can track them. Their technology advances at rates that defy natural progression. Velkarn nodded gravely. Our military advisors warn that human expansion follows no known pattern. They do not seek to conquer primitive worlds or establish trade routes like normal species. Instead, they focus on empty space, on regions we consider worthless. They build strange installations in asteroid fields and deep space. They mine resources from places where no sane species would venture. "What do they want with the void between stars?" asked the Regelian ambassador, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "No civilization can survive in such emptiness." "Perhaps they are preparing something," suggested the Centaurian delegate. "Building weapons or facilities beyond our sight." Velkarn raised his arms for silence. The Council Intelligence Division has compiled extensive reports. Human military capabilities have grown by 300% in the last decade alone. Their fleet movements suggest coordination on a level that should be impossible for such a young species. Most disturbing of all, our agents report that human civilians are beginning to vanish from Council territories. Vanish? Elder Thrixtau's crystal form darkened with concern. "Not die or flee," Velkarn clarified. "Simply disappear. Yesterday there were nearly 200 million humans living and working throughout our space. Our latest counts show that number dropping by thousands every day. They finish their work, close their businesses, and leave without explanation." The chamber erupted in worried chatter. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices creating a cacophony of concern and confusion. "Silence." Velkarn's voice cut through the noise. "We face a clear and present danger. A species that grows too fast, builds too quickly, and operates with suspicious secrecy. The humans have shown they cannot be trusted to regulate themselves." "What do you propose?" asked the Orani representative. Velkarn's expression grew stern. Galactic Statute 847. Full containment protocols. Humanity must surrender 75% of their military vessels immediately. They must accept Council oversight of all government decisions. They must allow our inspectors unlimited access to all human installations and colonies. "And if they refuse?" The question came from the back of the chamber. "Then we enforce compliance through military action," Velkarn replied coldly. 18 member species have already pledged their fleets to this effort. We have assembled the largest military force in galactic history. The vote was swift and decisive. 38 species voted in favor of the ultimatum. Only 5 abstained. The Tau Cetians walked out in protest, but their objection was noted and dismissed. Meanwhile, countless light years away, Admiral Lee Hyun-woo sat in the command center of humanity's most advanced warship. The Eternal Vigilance hung silently in space, its dark hull barely visible against the star field. Around him, his officers worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving the live feed from the council chamber," reported Captain Kim Min-ho, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "Put it on screen," Hyun-woo said calmly. The Admiral watched without expression as Velkarn delivered the ultimatum. 72 hours to comply or face the consequences. His dark eyes never flickered, even when the alien ambassador described humans as a threat to galactic peace. "Orders, sir?" Captain Kim asked quietly. "Contact President Choi," Hyun-woo replied. "Priority 1 encryption. And activate Protocol 7 immediately." Within moments, the president's image appeared on his private screen. Choi So-young looked exhausted, but her voice remained steady and strong. "They actually did it," she said. "After 30 years of patience, they finally showed their true colors." "Ma'am, we could still attempt negotiations," Captain Kim suggested hesitantly. President Choi's eyes flashed with cold determination. "No more negotiations. No more compromises. We've spent 3 decades trying to be good neighbors while they treated us like dangerous children. They want to see humanity's true capabilities? It's time we showed them exactly what they've been dealing with." Admiral Hyun-woo nodded slowly. "Protocol 7 is already active. Our people are coming home." "Good. When you respond to their ultimatum, Admiral, keep it brief. They want clarity? Give them absolute clarity." The silence in the Galactic Council's communication center was deafening. Every screen, every monitor, every holographic display showed the same thing. A single human face delivering a message that would change everything. Admiral Lee Hyun-woo stood perfectly still on the bridge of his ship. His black uniform was spotless, his posture straight and formal. Behind him, the endless darkness of space sparkled with distant stars. The camera focused only on him, creating an image that would be burned into the memory of every alien who saw it. "This is Admiral Lee Hyun-woo of the Terran Republic Navy," he began, his voice as calm as if he were ordering coffee. "We have received your ultimatum. We have considered your demands very carefully." Across the galaxy, millions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen. In the council chambers, Ambassador Velkarn leaned forward in his chair, his 4 arms gripping the armrests tightly. On a dozen different worlds, military commanders watched their screens with growing tension. "Our answer is simple," Hyun-woo continued, never breaking eye contact with the camera. "No. We decline your oversight. We decline your restrictions. We decline your authority over human affairs." The words hit the council like a physical blow. Several delegates gasped audibly. The Rigelian ambassador's tentacles writhed in shock. Even ancient Elder Thrixtal's crystal form flickered with surprise. But Hyun-woo was not finished. He paused for exactly 3 seconds, letting his words sink in across countless worlds. "Furthermore, effective immediately, all human civilians will leave council space. All trade agreements are cancelled. All diplomatic relations are ended. We wish you success in your future plans." The transmission cut off. 47 seconds of the most polite rejection in galactic history. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the panic began. "Get me intelligence reports from every sector," Velkarn shouted to his aides. "I want to know what the humans are doing right now." But what the humans were doing was something no one had ever seen before. They were leaving. All of them. At exactly the same time. On the trading station orbiting Altair 7, Captain Velkris watched in complete confusion as the human engineering team working on his ship simply stopped. They had been in the middle of installing new quantum drive systems, work that had taken them weeks to complete. Now they calmly packed their tools, gathered their equipment and walked toward the exit. "Wait." Velkris called after them, his insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. "The work is not finished. We have a contract." The lead engineer, a middle-aged human woman named Park Ji-min, turned back to him with a polite smile. "Please check Section 7 of our agreement, Captain. Termination clause activated as of today." Velkris pulled up the contract on his datapad, scanning through pages of legal text he had barely read when signing it. There, buried in the fine print, was a clause he had never noticed. "This agreement may be terminated immediately upon activation of Protocol 7 by either party." "What is Protocol 7? He demanded, but the humans were already gone. The same scene played out across the galaxy. On Zephyr Prime, Administrator Kolvar stared at empty laboratories where human scientists had been working on advanced medical research just hours before. The security recordings showed them methodically deleting all their work, backing up only the portions that belonged to their human employers, and walking out together at exactly 8 in the morning local time. How did they coordinate this? Kolvar asked his security chief. 200 million humans spread across thousands of worlds, all acting at exactly the same moment? Unknown, sir, the security chief replied, his voice trembling slightly. Our communication monitors show no unusual message traffic between human civilians. No emergency broadcasts, no coordination signals. They just knew. But the most disturbing reports came from the Outer Rim territories, where Council military scouts patrolled the edges of known space. Long-range sensors began picking up massive energy signatures moving through the darkness between stars. Ships were traveling through human space, but they were not the familiar boxy cargo vessels and simple military frigates that Council intelligence had been tracking for decades. These were different, slick, dark, and there were far more of them than should have been possible. Scout Captain Morthax reported back to his superiors with barely controlled fear in his voice. Sir, I'm detecting at least 300 unknown contacts moving through Sector 7. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. They're not showing up on our detailed scans, just basic motion detectors. 300 ships? His commander asked. That's their entire fleet. No, sir, Morthax replied quietly. According to our intelligence, their entire fleet is still in dock around Earth. These are different ships. Back in the council chambers, chaos reigned. Reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Humans were vanishing from hotels, restaurants, research stations, trade posts, and diplomatic missions. They were not running in panic or hiding in fear. They were leaving calmly, efficiently, and completely. How many humans were living in our space? Velkarn demanded from his intelligence chief. Our latest census counted 197 million human civilians across all member systems, the aide replied, scrolling through data on his tablet. Merchants, researchers, engineers, artists, students, tourists. And how many remain? The aide's face went pale. As of 1 hour ago, 0, sir. Every single human civilian has departed council space. Elder Thrixdal's ancient voice cut through the noise in the chamber. In 15 centuries of life, I have witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. I have seen species evacuate dying worlds and migrate across the galaxy. But never have I seen anything like this. What do you mean? Velkarn asked. The logistics, she explained, her crystal form pulsing with concerned light. To coordinate the simultaneous departure of nearly 200 million individuals across thousands of worlds would require communication networks, transportation systems, and organizational capabilities far beyond what we believed humans possessed. Velkarn felt a cold chill run down his spine. Are you suggesting we have underestimated them? I am suggesting, Elder Thrixtal replied slowly, that we may have been watching the wrong thing entirely. The space around Nexus Station had never seen anything like it. Ships from 18 different species filled the darkness, their hulls gleaming under the artificial lights of the massive military base. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying, like a deadly constellation of metal and energy weapons. Admiral Colthane stood on the bridge of the Infinite Dominion, the largest warship ever built. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought stretched for over a kilometer, its hull covered with enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Around it, thousands of other ships waited in perfect formation, ready for war. Final count, Lieutenant Velmora, Colthane ordered, his forearms crossed behind his back. 8,347 vessels, sir, the young officer reported. Battleships from the Altarian fleet, fast attack cruisers from the Rigelians, heavy destroyers from the Andromedans. Every major species has contributed their finest ships. Colthane nodded with satisfaction. In his 50 years of military service, he had never commanded such a force. The humans had picked the wrong fight at the wrong time. Their 12 little systems could not possibly stand against the combined might of half the galaxy. Intelligence update on human forces? He asked. Chief Intelligence Officer Mordan stepped forward, holding a data tablet. Latest reports confirm approximately 300 human military vessels, sir. Mixed classes, mostly light cruisers and frigates. Some larger ships, but nothing that approaches our heavy battleships. 300 against 8,000, Colthane mused. They must be planning to surrender once they see our fleet. But even as he spoke, something strange was happening across the galaxy. The Council's vast network of communication relays and spy satellites was going dark, one by one. Sir, Lieutenant Velmora called out, her voice tight with concern. We're losing contact with our long-range scouts. Equipment problems? Colthane asked. Unknown, sir. Scout ship Gamma 7 was reporting normal status, then simply stopped transmitting. No distress signal, no emergency beacon. Just silence. Within hours, the pattern became clear. Council ships and communication stations throughout the outer territories were vanishing from contact. Not destroyed in battle, not reporting emergencies, just going quiet as if they had never existed. It has to be sabotage, Mordan insisted during the emergency briefing. The humans must have planted agents throughout our infrastructure years ago. Now they're activating them all at once. Admiral Colthane studied the tactical displays showing the spreading zones of communication blackouts. The dark areas on the map were growing larger every hour, following the exact routes of Council patrol ships and monitoring stations. 200 million sleeper agents? He asked skeptically. All activated simultaneously across thousands of light-years? That would require coordination beyond anything we've ever seen. Then what explanation do you offer, sir? Mordan challenged. Colthane was quiet for a long moment, studying the patterns on the display. The blackouts were not random. They followed Council patrol routes perfectly, targeting the most secure and important communication nodes first. I suggest, he said slowly, that we may have been watching a performance for 30 years, while the real show was happening somewhere else entirely. Sir? Look at this pattern, Colthane pointed to the map. These communication failures are following our own patrol routes, hitting our most classified networks. Either the humans have been studying our military operations far more carefully than we realized, or we have been studying them far less carefully than we thought. Meanwhile, deep in human space, Admiral Lee Hyun-woo stood calmly on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance. Around him, his officers worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the approach of the massive Council fleet. Status report, Captain Kim, he said. The Council fleet is moving through hyperspace as expected, sir, Kim Min-ho replied. They should reach our territory in approximately 6 hours. And our preparations? Captain Kim smiled slightly. The stealth grid is working perfectly, sir. Council sensors can only detect about 10% of our actual fleet positions. Which 10%? Hyun-woo asked. Exactly the ships we want them to see, Kim replied. According to their instruments, we have roughly 300 vessels waiting to defend our territory. Hyun-woo nodded approvingly. For decades, humanity had been very careful about what they allowed other species to observe. Every military exercise, every ship launch, every technological demonstration had been carefully planned to show the galaxy exactly what they wanted to be seen. How many ships do we actually have in position? He asked. 1,400 in the primary defensive zone, Kim reported. Another 600 in reserve positions throughout the system. And that's just counting the conventional fleet. The conventional fleet? The ships operating in normal spacetime, sir. Admiral Cho Ji-hoon reports that the Shadow Fleet is ready in fold space dimensions. That's another 2,000 vessels. Hyun-woo allowed himself a small smile. While the Council had been governing their vast territories and debating humanity's threat level, human scientists had been exploring the deepest mysteries of physics. They had learned to build ships that could exist between dimensions, invisible to conventional sensors. Sir, Kim said quietly, are we really going to fight them? Their fleet outnumbers our visible ships 30-1. Captain, Hyun-woo replied calmly, they've been counting the wrong fleet for 30 years. On the Council flagship, Admiral Colthane received the final intelligence briefing before battle. The reports were confident. Human forces were badly outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in their own territory. But as he looked at the spreading pattern of communication blackouts on his tactical display, a cold feeling settled in his stomach. For the first time in his long military career, he wondered if his fleet was sailing into a trap that had been decades in the making. All ships, he commanded, maintain maximum alert status. Something tells me we're about to learn what humanity has really been doing for the past 30 years. The moment the Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace, every officer on every bridge knew something was terribly wrong. Admiral Colthane stood frozen on the command deck of the Infinite Dominion, staring at his tactical displays in complete disbelief. Where Council intelligence had predicted a few hundred desperate human ships scattered around their home worlds, he saw an organized fleet that stretched across impossible distances. Lieutenant Velmora, he said slowly, his voice barely steady, please confirm those sensor readings. The young officer's hands shook as she worked her controls. Sir, I'm detecting over 3,000 ships in formation. The signatures they're unlike anything in our databases. 3,000, Colthane whispered. Our intelligence said they had 300 total. But the numbers were not the most shocking thing. The ships themselves defied everything the Council thought they knew about human technology. Gone were the simple, boxy designs they had observed for decades. Instead, the human fleet consisted of sleek, elegant vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their hulls curved in impossible ways, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at directly. "Sir," called out his science officer, "these ships are bending space around themselves. The light distortion we're seeing suggests they're using some kind of dimensional folding technology." "That's impossible," Colthane replied automatically. "No species has mastered dimensional manipulation on this scale." "Apparently one species has, sir." Across the Council fleet, similar scenes of shock and confusion played out. Captain Morvex of the Altarian destroyer Swift Strike watched his instruments with growing panic. "Our targeting systems can't lock onto them," he reported to his bridge crew. "It's as if they exist partially outside normal space." On the Rigelian battleship Crushing Tide, Admiral Thelmora studied the enemy formation with professional interest mixed with fear. "They're not just waiting for us," she observed. "They're positioned perfectly to counter every tactical advantage we thought we had." But the greatest shock came when the human flagship opened communications. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," reported Communications Officer Nixera aboard the Infinite Dominion. "They're requesting visual contact." "Put it on screen," Colthane ordered, trying to maintain his composure. The face of Admiral Lee Hyun-woo appeared on the main display, but the background behind him was nothing like what Council observers had ever seen before. The bridge of the Eternal Vigilance looked like something from a dream or a nightmare. Holographic displays showed mathematical equations that seemed to move and shift on their own. Control panels operated without anyone touching them. The very air seemed to shimmer with energy. "Admiral Colthane," Hyun-woo said politely as if greeting an old friend. "Welcome to human space. I hope your journey was comfortable." "This is impossible," Colthane stammered. "Our intelligence reports clearly showed." "Showed exactly what we wanted you to see," Hyun-woo interrupted gently. "Admiral, for 30 years, you have been watching a carefully staged performance. Every ship you catalogued, every technology demonstration you observed, every military exercise your spies reported on, all of it was theater." The human admiral gestured to someone off-screen, and suddenly the tactical display showed not just the ships the Council could see, but thousands more. Vessels materialized from what appeared to be empty space, phasing into normal reality like ghosts becoming solid. "You counted 300 ships because we allowed you to count 300 ships," Hyun-woo continued. "You believed you understood human capabilities because we made understanding our most successful export." Admiral Colthane felt his legs grow weak. "But how? The logistics alone." "While you were governing the galaxy, Admiral, we were learning from it. Every species freely shared their knowledge in the spirit of galactic cooperation. We studied your technologies, your strategies, your weaknesses. Most importantly, we learned that your greatest strength, your absolute confidence in your own superiority, was also your greatest weakness." More human ships continued to appear around the Council fleet. Not attacking, simply revealing themselves. Within minutes, the tactical display showed the Council armada completely surrounded by forces that outnumbered them 4-1. "But where did you build all this?" Colthane asked desperately. "We monitored your systems constantly." "You monitored 12 systems because those were the 12 systems we permitted you to see," Hyun-woo replied. "Admiral, did you never wonder why humanity was so interested in the empty spaces between stars? The dark matter streams, the quantum foam, the dimensional folds between galaxies." A new voice joined the conversation as another human officer appeared on the split screen. "Admiral Cho Ji-hoon, commanding the Shadow Fleet," he introduced himself. "For 30 years, we've been building our real civilization in the spaces you never bothered to explore." "Shadow Fleet?" Colthane asked weakly. "Ships that exist primarily in fold space," Cho explained. "Invisible to your sensors because they operate outside the dimensional framework your science understands." As if to demonstrate, a section of space near the Council fleet suddenly filled with thousands of small, bright objects, human fighter craft so advanced they barely registered on sensors. Colonel Oh Sung-min, commanding the Deep Strike Wing, announced a third human officer. "We've been watching your fleet since it left Nexus Station, Admiral. Your tactical plans, your communication codes, your supply routes, we know them all." Colthane's command staff stared at their instruments in horror. Their most secure communications had been compromised. Their secret approach routes had been tracked. Their supposedly invisible supply convoys had been under human observation the entire time. "What do you want from us?" Colthane asked, his voice barely audible. "Nothing," Admiral Hyun-woo replied simply. "We want nothing from you except to be left alone. You can keep your vast territories, your trade networks, your political games. We will take what we need from the spaces you consider empty and worthless. And if we refuse? Hyunwoo's expression remained calm and friendly. Admiral, you came here with 8,000 ships to force 300 humans to surrender. You now find yourself surrounded by forces that outnumber you, outgun you, and operate with technology you cannot understand or counter. What exactly do you think you're in a position to refuse? The silence that followed stretched across light years, broken only by the quiet humming of human ships that had seemingly materialized from the void itself. The Great Council chamber had never felt so empty. Even with dozens of alien representatives still in their seats, the vast crystalline dome seemed hollow, like an echo of something that had once been important. Admiral Cole Thane stood in the center of the room, his once proud uniform wrinkled and stained. His 4 arms hung at his sides like broken branches. The mighty Zephyrian warrior who had left Nexus Station commanding the greatest fleet in galactic history now looked like a tired old soldier returning from a war nobody understood. Report, Ambassador Velkarn demanded, but his voice carried none of its usual authority. The word came out flat, almost whispered. Cole Thane was quiet for a long moment, staring at the floor. When he finally spoke, his voice was so soft that the chamber's audio systems had to amplify it for everyone to hear. We were dismissed, he said simply. The word hung in the air like poison gas. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Elder Thrixtal's ancient crystal body had grown so dim it was barely visible. Dismissed. Velkarn repeated. What does that mean? Not defeated, Cole Thane explained slowly. Not destroyed. Not captured or humiliated. Simply dismissed. Like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. Explain, Elder Thrixtal commanded, her voice like wind through broken glass. Cole Thane took a deep breath. Admiral Lee Hyunwoo spoke to our entire fleet as if he were addressing students. He was polite, even friendly. He explained that humanity wants nothing from us except to be left alone. They will take what they need from the empty spaces between galaxies, from places we cannot even reach or detect. The void between stars? Asked the Regelian delegate. Nothing can survive in such emptiness. Apparently humans can, Cole Thane replied. Hyunwoo suggested that we focus on governing the territories we already control instead of worrying about matters beyond our understanding. Velkarn's scaled face had turned pale. What happened to our fleet? Nothing, Cole Thane said. That was the most terrifying part. They could have destroyed every single one of our ships without effort. Their weapons locked onto us, their targeting systems painted our hulls with enough firepower to crack moons. But they chose not to fire. Why? Admiral Hyunwoo said something I will never forget. Cole Thane's voice grew even quieter. He said, we are not interested in ruling over anyone. We are interested in not being ruled over by anyone. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant hum of the translation system seemed muted. How many ships did they actually have? Velkarn asked, though he seemed afraid of the answer. Unknown, Cole Thane admitted. Our best sensors couldn't count their fold space vessels. Our targeting computers couldn't lock onto their dimensional shields. We couldn't even properly identify their visible fleet. Conservative estimates suggest at least 10,000 ships, with technology decades ahead of anything we possess. 10,000, whispered Counselor Morvex of the Altarian Trade Guild. We catalogued 300. We saw exactly what they wanted us to see, Cole Thane confirmed. For 30 years, while we debated whether humans were dangerous, they were building their true civilization in places we never thought to look. Between galaxies. In quantum foam. In the spaces between dimensions. Elder Thrixtal's crystal form flickered weakly. In 15 centuries of life, I have never encountered a species that hid their true nature so completely. They weren't hiding, Cole Thane said. They were just somewhere else. Building something we couldn't imagine in places we couldn't reach. Over the following days, the reality of the situation became clear. 7 major species quietly withdrew their membership from the Galactic Council. Not in protest, not in alliance with humanity, but in the sudden understanding that they had been playing a game whose rules they had never learned. The Andromedans were first to leave, their ambassador stating simply that they preferred to avoid further embarrassment. The Centaurians followed, then the Tausetians, then others. Each departure was quiet, dignified, and final. Those who remained governed with a new caution. Patrol routes were adjusted to avoid human space by at least 5 light-years. Military exercises were reduced. Expansion plans were reconsidered. Meanwhile, in the deep void between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies, humanity continued their real work. Long-range sensors occasionally detected massive energy signatures in the emptiness, construction projects on a scale that defied comprehension. Orbital habitats the size of moons, powered by technologies that drew energy directly from the quantum foam itself. President Choi So-young stood in her office beneath the Seoul Arcology, reading the daily reports from the border systems. Captain Eugene A. brought her the latest intelligence from Council Space. Any reaction from the Council? So-young asked. Complete silence on all diplomatic channels, Gene A. reported. Their patrol routes now specifically avoid our territory. No communication attempts, no demands, no threats. Good, So-young said simply. And our expansion into deep space? The Magellan project is ahead of schedule. Admiral Park Tae-ho reports the first permanent cities are operational in the void between galaxies. We should have full infrastructure connecting both galaxies within 50 years. So-young nodded. Humanity had never wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had simply wanted the freedom to grow beyond it, to explore the infinite darkness between the islands of stars. The galaxy had tried to contain them within boundaries of understanding, never realizing that humanity's true ambition lay in the limitless territories that existed beyond anyone's imagination. Now the Council governed a galaxy that felt smaller, quieter, and far less secure than it had just months before. They had learned that the greatest danger was not the species that demanded attention, but the one that preferred to work in silence, in the spaces where no one thought to look. And in those dark spaces between worlds, humanity built the future they had always dreamed of.